We will now call the Huntersville regular board meeting to order. Sorry that we are a few minutes late. I will take ownership of that one, but thank everyone for joining us, if you were joining us on YouTube or Boxcast. We will now take a moment and have a moment of silence. Please join. Thank you, and if you'll now stand and join with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, for those that have just come in, if you wouldn't mind making sure that your phones are on vibrate or turned off, we'd greatly appreciate that. We will now move to staff questions. Does anyone have a question for staff this evening? Commissioner Partee?
Real quick for the town manager. Is there any updates on the structural engineering situation up the across the street at the town center?
Bobby, you want to get Bobby over there? Was he out? So we had engineer of record supposed to be coming to look at it. We had an engineer come look at it and give us some feedback, the email we sent you, but we actually have the engineer of record supposed to be coming to take a peek and get up on the, I'm going to say the, what do you call it, the crane, if you want to call it, or the extender ladder, whatever you call those things these days. But I don't know if that's this week or next week. So we'll have more feedback for you then.
There's not a safety issue. There's not a safety issue for the employees there?
We did move some folks out of the room so that we're not holding meetings in that room, and we switched the, where that is over top of DPK, switched that area around so that folks would go in a different area. MJ, anything to add to that? There we go. Wednesday morning, I'm sorry.
Wednesday morning.
Yep.
Okay. And is there an update on the roof here? Because I know it's been leaking.
Yes, we are moving forward. I don't know if Bobby's got all the quotes and all, working with them now on the quotes, et cetera, we need, but yeah, we're going to replace this roof. It's, we patched and patched and patched. We're trying to just sort of see maybe where we were going, but it's, well, you can walk around the building, there's water in the floor, and at least 200 tiles probably in the last 4 years been changed out, leaking everywhere, so we got to replace the roof.
Well, when you walk around, you see trash cans on people's desks to catch the water dripping. Yeah, that's why I wanted to ask, just to make sure we were on top of it. I do have a question for Mr. Trott. Mr. Trott, would you mind giving us an I-77 update on what's happening out here with the Exit 23?
Sure. So NCDOT passed along recently that the northbound ramp at Exit 23 right out here at Gilead Road is going to be closed. Make sure I get this right. Sorry, bear with me for 1 second. On Friday, August the 19th, starting at 9 p.m. They're doing some paving work right there, and so they needed to close it then, and they're going to pause it on Saturday of the 20th at 9 a.m. and then resume Saturday night beginning at 6 p.m. and then conclude Sunday morning at 9 a.m. So it looks like intermittent closures starting Friday evening throughout this weekend.
Okay, great, thank you. So let's just make sure, I guess, that we're pushing that out to our citizens. I'm sure it's already posted, but making sure that you tell your neighbors too, because the worst thing is to be coming up 77 at 9 o'clock at night and not be able to get off your exit, trying to figure out a way around it. So better to be updated and informed. Any other questions for staff? Seeing none. And there is no one who has signed up for public comment this evening, correct? All right, and we do not have any presentations. So Wow, that means we get to go to agenda changes or adopt the agenda as presented.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Actually, do have an agenda change.
Oh,
I'd like to move item 12A, the closed session, to the meeting, first meeting in September, so all board members speak up.
If you're going to make a motion like that, you have to say where it's going to be to at Town Hall.
I am not done with my motion.
Okay.
September 6th, the first meeting in September here at Town Hall. So all board members can be present to make an informed decision.
Second.
any other discussion? All those in favor of the agenda change? None opposed? The closed session will be moved to the first meeting in September here at Town Hall. Now, is there a motion?
Motion to approve the agenda with the amended changes.
There is a motion. And there is a second. Thank you, Commissioner Boone. To adopt the agenda as amended. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that motion passes. Is there a motion for the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second? Second. There is a motion and there is a second. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. We will now move to public hearings. We will be conducting a public hearing on suggested edits to the town's soil erosion and sedimentation control ordinance. Ms. Sloot, I'd like to turn this over to you. Actually, if you don't mind, before we start, I would like to acknowledge our planning board representatives who are here this evening. If you wouldn't mind standing and introducing yourself. Thank you both. And now, Ms. Sloot, everybody is here.
Good evening. So last September, the town board adopted some edits to the town soil erosion sedimentation control ordinance, and that was to reflect legislative changes from House Bill 489. Since that time, in working with staff and also reviewing the state's model ordinance to reflect these edits, we have identified some areas of the ordinance that we felt could be further clarified to better assist staff with applying the new legislation from a practical standpoint, and also to further specify the narrow application of the changes, as well as align the text of the ordinance with 489. I'm happy to answer any questions, but these proposed edits have been drafted and reviewed with engineering and public works staff.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Planning board members, do you have any questions? Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Frank Gammon, Planning Board. Just one question. Does this soil erosion, I know this is in the ordinance, will it cause any changes in the zoning ordinance or the subdivision ordinance?
No, sir.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll close this public hearing. We'll now move to item 10A. Is there a motion on the floor? Commissioner Boone?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve the edits to Huntersville soil erosion sedimentation control ordinance that reflects the legislative changes resulting from House Bill 489.
Second.
There is a motion. There is a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. Now move to item 10B, and this is a quasi-judicial hearing. Mr. Pete? How are you this evening?
Good, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Let me pull my presentation here out. So this hearing is a quasi-judicial hearing on the application submitted for the Brighton Townhomes Parcel 2 subdivision sketch plan. It's a request by the Northbridge LLC to subdivide 3.114 acres located at the northeast intersection of Statesville Road and Brighton Ridge Parkway for a 25-unit townhome development. So if you will please bear with me as I read through this process. Quasi-judicial hearings are evidentiary in nature. Only parties with standing, including the applicant, property owner, local government, and individuals who can show they will suffer special damages, have the right to participate fully in the hearing. Special damages must be particularized, separate, and distinct from damages to the public at large. Special damages are a fact-specific inquiry. While proximity may bear weight in the determination of special damages, proximity in and of itself is insufficient to grant standing. Parties may present evidence, call witnesses, and make legal arguments. Other individuals may, but are not required to be, allowed to speak as a witness. However, they will not be allowed to participate fully as a party, such as by questioning other witnesses or by calling on other persons to testify. Witnesses must swear or affirm their testimony. General witness testimony is limited to facts, not personal preferences or opinions. Certain topics require expert witnesses, including projections about impacts on property values and traffic impacts. Individuals providing expert opinion testimony must be qualified as experts and must provide the factual evidence upon which they base their expert opinion. Mere conclusionary testimony lacking the foundation of the expert's opinion is insufficient to establish the existence or non-existence of a fact or conclusion. The board must base quasi-judicial decisions upon competent material and substantial evidence in the record. Competent evidence is evidence that is sufficiently trustworthy and reliable and that is legally fit and acceptable for consideration by the board. Speculative, irrelevant, or vague evidence, non-expert opinions as to something that requires an expert, and non-accepted hearsay evidence will likely not be competent evidence. Material evidence is evidence that shows that the standards will or will not be met. Evidence is substantial if it is relevant and regarded by a reasonable person as sufficient to support a specific conclusion. Speculation, unsubstantiated fears of the community, or vague I'm having one of those days. Vague assertions do not constitute substantial evidence. Quasi-judicial hearings are constrained by the standard in the ordinance and the facts presented. Even though the board may hear other evidence, if it is not objected to, the board should rely on competent material and substantial evidence in making its decisions. The board will recognize the applicant as a party, as well as the property owners if different than the applicant. Are there other persons who believe they have standing to participate fully as a party? If so, please come forward at this time. However, if you do wish to participate as a party, please wait to come up until after we've identified parties with standing. So, please join us up here. Join Mr. Pete. If you wouldn't mind, please just stating briefly why you believe you have standing.
My name's Aaron Shire. I'm with Boardman Land Partners, a developer, and I'm representing the property owner this evening.
All right, thank you very much. You certainly do have standing. Anyone else? All right. Yes?
My apologies. Ms. Loop, is it possible that since she started the entire parameters for quasi-judicial that she only has to read it once because we have two, or she has to read it twice for the second one as well?
So typically, we read it into the record of each one of them. If we had started out saying that it would be set for both, it might have been, but it's best practice to read it for both.
Thank you. Sorry about the interruption.
Not a problem. I will do my best to read it quickly. All right. The parties in this case are entitled to an impartial board. A board member may not participate in this hearing if she or he has a fixed opinion about the matter, a financial interest in the outcome of the matter, or a close relationship with an affected person. Does any board member have any conflicts of interest to offer at tonight's meeting? The parties to this case have rights for any ex parte communication to be disclosed. Ex parte communication is any communication about the case outside of the hearing. That may be email communications as well as conversations with parties, staff, or the general public. Does any board member have any ex parte communications to disclose? Seeing none. Now, I'd like to call on planning staff for the presentation of their staff report. I hope I didn't get this out of order. No.
They need to be sworn in.
They do need to be sworn in. That's why I thought I got it out of order. Just a moment. Is the Bible up here? Okay. Let's go ahead and get you all sworn in or affirm. Yes, thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you shall give to the board in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes. Yes, thank you. And before you begin, please state for the record your name, address, and relation to the case as you come up. And Mr. Pete, we'll go ahead and let you present if you'd like. Please.
Aaron Shire with Boardman Land Partners. Address is 1687 Half Pint Loop, Fort Mill, South Carolina.
Thank you. Mr. Pete.
Thank you very much. I want to enter the staff report into the record. So very quickly, this property is 3.114 acres located along 115 just north of Brighton Ridge Parkway. It is part of the Brighton development. It was from the outset zoned neighborhood commercial, which is that dark bluish color. This is just a quick context map to show you the location located in this area right there. Couple of aerial shots. It essentially is forested. It is surrounded by Brighton Ridge Parkway on the south, 115 on the west, and the railroad on the east. And then it comes to a pinch point with very little linear footage on the north side. 25 townhomes are proposed in this particular subdivision. That would come out to 8 dwelling units per acre. You can see the parking spaces that are looking to be provided. The project is oriented in this fashion. You can see that the majority of the townhomes front on 115. There is no connection to Brighton Ridge Parkway. That is just a turnaround that looks like it goes very close. There are 5 units that face onto Brighton Ridge Parkway. There is a private alley to the rear to serve all units, and there is additional perpendicular parking back there. Stormwater will be on the very north edge. The mixed-use center elements for this cover all of the Brighton project, but the intersection of Hambright and 115 creates the center of a mixed-use center. And you can see along the bottom that I have identified all of the references in the 2040 community plan for this subdivision that lend support. They are in your staff report, and I'm certainly happy to revisit any of those if you'd like to. If you have any specific questions about the site plan, we can go over those. I will very quickly show you the CMS Input Report shown here. You can look on the bottom there that they are not identifying any significant impacts on this particular project. The staff report found that this application was complete. There were a couple of bullets here talking about providing a landscape easement for the second row of trees on 115, working with staff on the design of the urban open space there at the entrance to the alley, and then all of the miscellaneous town transportation, water quality plan, and other comments would be addressed. We received an email this afternoon that indicated by the applicant, Mr. Shire, that they would satisfy all of those outstanding items. So there are no outstanding items to go over. At last month's planning board meeting on July the 26th, they recommended support for this subdivision by unanimous vote, 9-0, for essentially all of the reasons that I just went over that are outlined in the staff report. The applicant is here. Are there any questions of myself or the applicant?
Commissioner Kidwell.
Mr. Munger has his hand up first.
Okay,
Mr. Munger.
sure. How you guys doing? All right, so staff question. Do we still have TOD zoning?
Do we still have TOD zoning?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Okay. We recently changed our rules on subdivision sketch plan. Was the applicant afforded the opportunity to choose a non-quasi-judicial path on this?
They were, and they elected to stay the course because they would not be allowed 100% attached.
And is that because of the change to the TOD zoning?
That's because of the removal of the provision of distance from a designated rail station.
Okay. All right, so that one. One of the comments, and I know it's been addressed, but the outstanding transportation review comments, I did not see those anywhere.
Those are in our electronic plan management system software. I
Okay.
can certainly provide those, but what those typically get to are crosswalk is not at a 90-degree setup, very miscellaneous. Our engineering department would certainly bring forward anything that would change the site plan, such as a decel lane or maybe a curb cut that wouldn't be allowed, that kind of thing. But there are always minor transportation elements, the return radius on a sidewalk or something like that. So again, not trying to get out of my realm there, not being the engineer, but
Yeah.
those are in our electronic plan review,
Okay.
what we call our red lines.
And one of the previous slides mentioned those have been addressed at this point. Is that correct?
They are willing to comply with every comment that they have been provided.
Okay. And so that answers that question. Question for the applicant. And you're very soft-spoken, so aim for the mic. During your neighborhood meeting and Q&A, you mentioned the price point to begin in the upper 300s to low 400s. Is that still accurate?
That was how many months ago? I think 2 months ago.
Fair.
I would, pricing is all over the board right now, but we maintain that would be close to the price point for these townhomes, yes.
Okay. And the last question I have, looking at this, why didn't we connect to Brighton Ridge Parkway?
That would probably be an answer for the engineer.
Okay, sure.
Well, I can give you the quick answer, although Mr. Trott is here as well. So the geometry of coming off of Brighton Ridge Parkway from the east across the railroad tracks is is highly elevated. And to come down to have a curb cut would be not a safe condition. That has been analyzed. Mr. Shire's application is not the first that we have seen for this property since Brighton was originally proposed. So that is something that we have definitely struggled and wrestled with, but another connection was just not something that could happen in a safe manner.
So we felt this was the best way to do it safely.
Well, with the number of units, and it is right in, right out only, so there's just not a lot of movement that's going to happen at this development. So that's about as safe as you can get when you've got very limited options.
Okay. I guess my only concern is if there is an incident anywhere along this street that blocks it out, they're basically trapped in there. Would that be fair?
Well, if you're cutting off that particular stretch, then that would probably be fair to say.
Okay. But it's not a high concern then? Would that be fair for the staff?
Fire marshal offered no comment about that, so. no concern.
All right, thank you. That's all I have.
Any other questions? Commissioner Kidwell.
Yes, and I'd like to thank Commissioner Munger for asking that connection question, because I know how much this board really wants neighborhoods to connect to each other and to streets. Mr. Pete, this is a question for you. CMS said they didn't see any issue, no significant impact. Has CMS ever seen significant impact on anything we presented to them in your history?
Well, in terms of, I don't want to get into that term that they use, but they often will outline the majority of the projects have some bearing. Typically, when you see most all of the numbers over 100%, they will say something. Again, I don't want to use those terms because I don't think that's what they actually said.
Okay. And then we talked about the connection there. And that's really all I have. I think it's, I will say this, I think it's a bit dangerous to have, the way this is locked in, one road in, one road out. I've known a lot of firemen, good friends of mine, and it just seems like that's a potential hazard, in my opinion. But
I do certainly understand that completely, but I will offer to you that somewhat recently, the fire code was raised to 100 units before second entrance is required. Previous to that, it was 30, and we're at 25. So again, fully understand your point, but the fire marshal would not have commented with the old code.
Commissioner Phillips?
Mr. Pete, could you go back to the page that had the mixed-use centers? Oh, there it is. Can we amend this because at the bottom it says the Hamlet for your report in the staff record?
That is my fault right there. I
It
can definitely
happens.
do that.
I just wanted to make sure you were on board.
I was checking to see if you were looking at the slide.
Commissioner Partee?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Pete, has there been any given foresight as to the chatter around the red line starting to get in talks with Norfolk Southern, and possibly how that's the construction, if it does come to fruition, how that will impact the future residents of that particular area? And will there be like a covenant to let them know that there's a possibility that there'll be a commuter line coming up next to their particular residents and properties?
Well, I'll have to leave the first part of your question to either maybe Jack or Stephen if they feel so led. But the second part, as part of the Brighton development, all of the Brighton development was set up to be within that capture area for the rail station. So that walk has been contemplated, and that distance is found to be accessible. Just about all of the development, or all of the land to the east of this particular triangle has over time become apartments or townhomes. And so the sidewalks are in, there's legs of Greenway. There will be ways for them to get to that station, including walking straight down 115 and turning on Hambright. So if that comes to fruition, they definitely will be within that capture area. But the status of the rail, I don't have the latest information.
If I may, just to piggyback off of that, I think it's more about making sure that the residents who, if this is approved, that the residents who were living that close to the line itself are recognize that they're living that close to the line themselves. Do you know what I mean? Being notified. Not that, yeah, they should see it, but.
Yes, it's going to be, there's not a lot of topographic relief here, so.
Right.
It's something that you will know.
I would like to think that, but just to make sure. I do have another question in regards to fire and turnaround, and the fire truck's ability to make that turn and back in, and the ability for them to get back out.
Again, I will have to defer to the fire marshal's lack of comment.
Okay.
I believe that this motion
Yes.
will allow them to do what they need to do. It does have a good bit of length there.
Yeah, I will, if I could add to that.
Yes, please.
Our design engineer did, as part of the sketch plan submittal, they, on their software, they provide turn radius designed for a fire truck. I think that shows how a fire truck might maneuver And again, this is an alley, so these lots also obviously are fronting on the public right-of-way. And here, we're, this is an alley behind the townhome, so it's not a public street per se with no access behind the homes. This is, the alley would actually be a double access.
Yep. Madam Mayor, that's an excellent point is made, is the fire marshal would tell you that the front of these units would be just as accessible as the back. So you're not limited to just one.
Okay.
This shows you the turning templates that they use to evaluate the plan.
Thank you.
They do have two options from the front to the back.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for staff or the applicant? All right. Hearing no additional questions or presentation of relevant facts, the board will now begin deliberation. The evidentiary hearing remains open so that the board may ask clarifying questions if needed. As a reminder, this board is tasked with deciding if, based on competent material, substantial evidence presented at the hearing before this board, this proposal meets the applicable standards. If the applicant meets their burden of producing competent material and substantial evidence that the standards in the ordinance will be met, the burden shifts to the other parties opposing, and no one has come to oppose this application, to show by competent material and substantial evidence that the standards in the ordinance will not be met. Is there a motion regarding this request? Commissioner Partee.
I'd like to make a motion that the town board approves the Brighton Townhomes Parcel 2 sketch plan review. The board finds the application to be complete. The application complies with applicable requirements. The application is in keeping with the Huntersville 2040 plan, section EOS 8.3, EOS 10, LU 2.1, LU 5.3, LU 7.1, LU 8.3, LU 9.1, LU 10.1, and T 5.1. The town board recommends approval of the sketch plan with the following conditions. Number one, work with staff on the design of the urban open space during preliminary plan. Number two, provide landscape easement along North Carolina 115 frontage for the second row of street trees. Number three, town transportation commitments must be addressed. Number four, water quality concept plan must be approved by staff. And number five, all other plan commitments are addressed.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Any additional conversation or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. We will now move to our second quasi-judicial hearing. And Mr. Pete, it looks like you are staying with us. Give me a moment to reset. This hearing is a quasi-judicial hearing on the application submitted for a decision on Maxwell Avenue Townhome Subdivision Sketch Plan, a request by North State Development to subdivide 2.79 acres located at southeast intersection of Old Statesville Road and Maxwell Avenue. And this is for 35-unit townhome development. Quasi-judicial hearings are evidentiary in nature. Only parties with standing, including the applicant, property owner, local government, and individuals who can show they will suffer special damages, have the right to participate fully in the hearing. Special damages must be particularized, separate, and distinct from damages to the public at large. Special damages are a fact-specific inquiry. While proximity may bear weight in the determination of special damages, proximity in and of itself is insufficient to grant standing. Parties may present evidence, call witnesses, and make legal arguments. Other individuals may, but are not required to be, allowed to speak as witness. However, they will not be allowed to participate fully as a party, such as by questioning other witnesses or by calling other persons to testify. Witnesses must swear or affirm their testimony. General witness testimony is limited to facts, not personal preferences or opinions. Certain topics require expert witnesses, including projections about impacts on property values and traffic impacts. Individuals providing expert opinion testimony must be qualified as experts and provide the factual evidence upon which they base their expert opinion. Mere conclusory testimony lacking the foundation of the expert's opinion is insufficient to establish the existence or non-existence of a fact or conclusion. The board must base quasi-judicial decisions upon competent material and substantive evidence in the record. Competent evidence is evidence that is sufficiently trustworthy and reliable, and that is legally fit and acceptable for consideration by the board. Speculative, irrelevant, or vague evidence, non-expert opinions as to something that requires an expert, or a non-expected hearsay evidence will likely not be competent evidence. Material evidence is evidence that shows that the standards will or will not be met. Evidence is substantial if it is relevant and regarded by a reasonable person as sufficient to support a specific conclusion. Speculation, unsubstantiated fears of the community, or vague assertions do not constitute substantial evidence. Quasi-judicial hearings are constrained by the standards in the ordinance and the facts presented. Even though the board may hear other evidence, if it is not objected to, the board should rely on competent material and substantial evidence in making its decision. The board will recognize the applicant as a party, as well as the property owners, if different from the applicant. Are there any persons who believe they have standing to fully participate as a party? If so, would you please come front? Come forward. Go ahead and come right on over here, please. And I would like to have each person just come forward to the microphone and briefly state the reasons why you believe you have standing. Anyone other than the applicant must provide a specific reason that the proposed subdivision will affect them differently from the rest of the community. So, who would like to go first?
I'm David Dupree, I'm the applicant.
My name's Colin Janess with Cole Janess and Stone, civil engineer, so expert witness.
Are you coming as well? Did you plan to speak?
If I should introduce myself, if I speak on behalf of the applicant?
What are you planning to speak
I
on?
won't be testifying, but I might introduce someone.
So not at this time, then? Just we're standing.
Thank you. The parties to this case are entitled to an impartial board. A board member may not participate in this hearing if she or he has a fixed opinion about the matter, a financial interest in the outcome of the matter, or a close relationship with an affected person. Does any board member have any conflicts of interest to offer at tonight's meeting? Seeing none. The parties to this case have rights for any ex parte communication to be disclosed. Ex parte communication is any communication about the case outside of the hearing. That may be email communications as well as conversations with parties, staff, or the general public. Does any board member have any ex parte communications to disclose? Seeing none. Give me just a second. We will now go ahead and swear our folks in. So if you wouldn't mind, come joining me up here. Left hand, right hand up. Thank you very much. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you shall give to the board in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you very much. Now, before we begin, please state for the record your name, address, and relation to the case. So I would need everybody to kind of come up and let everyone know who you are, your address, and why you're here this evening, participating in the hearing.
First, Stephen Trott with the town, Director of Engineering.
Thank you.
David Pete, Principal Planner, Town of Huntersville.
Thank you.
David Dupree, I'm a principal with North State, 18825 West Catawba Avenue, Cornelius.
Thank you.
Susan Irvin, representing the applicant, 19726 Zion Street, Cornelius.
Thank you.
Again, Colin Genest, Cole Genest and Stone, speaking as an expert witness, 2714 Normandy Road, Charlotte, North Carolina.
Thank you. Mr. Pete, I will now hand it over to you to submit your staff report into the record.
Thank you. And enter the staff report into the record very briefly. The site is located there in the hatching. This is Zone Town Center. In the red, it is located on North Old Statesville Road to the what we would call the front. And then Maxwell Avenue would be to the rear. Maxwell Avenue actually goes around the north end and connects to North Old Statesville Road in this particular project. Here is a bit of a context map. You can see some the development pattern that exists around it. And then here's a zoom in, and you can see that the parcels involved here all have older single-family homes on substantial size lots that are being redeveloped. The 2.79 acres that are accumulated here would look to have 35 townhomes. That's a density of 12.5 units per acre. They're looking, you can see the parking relationship there and what they're looking to provide in the site plan. The 2040 community plan identifies this as part of a mixed-use center. The references are there on the right side of the screen. We can visit those again if you'd like to. The sketch plan is shown here, and you can see that the units either front along North Old Statesville Road, this part of Maxwell Avenue, or this part of Maxwell Avenue, and then these over here actually front an urban open space that is proposed there on the south edge. The CMS report is shown here, and due to the, you can see in the yellow there that they do express a significant issue. I think while it only is looking to generate about 6 students, I think the capacity for the schools in this particular zone are well over 100%. The recommendation here is the application is complete for this particular subdivision. The conditioned bullet items would include that working with the applicant to save as many of the specimen trees as possible. They are compliant with their number, but we're looking to try to save a few more, if possible, that are identified. There is power lines along Old Statesville Road that we would like to, as part of the subdivision process, have those buried with working with electricities on that. The urban open space type, looking to qualify that as a square, and I'll show you the applicant's responses to all of these items in just a second. There is a sidewalk that's coming out of all of the units that are on the south side, and rather than have each one of those, the recommendation is that they would be consolidated. to eliminate impervious area as well as to sort of make it more aesthetically pleasing as part of a urban open space setup. And then the last 3 bullets, again, get into miscellaneous town transportation comments, water quality, as well as the other staff members that may exist. So the recommendation would be that with that, staff would recommend that you could approve. The applicant emailed again this afternoon indicating that they would be able to comply with all of the items. I will let the applicants, I think, speak to the second bullet that they'd like to speak with you about. And the planning board at the July meeting, by unanimous vote, recommended approval for, and the motion is there, but it is essentially the summary of the staff report that I gave just a moment ago. Are there any questions on this particular subdivision before you of myself, Stephen, or the applicants?
Any questions, Commissioner Munger?
Some of these are going to sound familiar. We recently modified TOD zoning to disallow 100% attached, but this contains 100% attached. How is that possible?
They were submitted prior to the change. And they were all given the option, and they elected to continue forward rather than to seek a different zoning.
You hit 1 and 2. If they had chosen an administrative path, would they have been subject to the lack of TOD zoning? Would they have been subject to the change in TOD zoning? I.e., would they not have been allowed to do 100% attached if they had chosen not to go quasi-judicial?
Well, the ability to do it was, again, their distance from identified rail station. So, and TOD does not exist in this area and would not offer that provision.
So if they had chosen to not go quasi-judicial, they would have been allowed to do 100% attached. Is that correct?
Not to go quasi-judicial?
If they weren't here and they just said administrative, would they have been allowed to do 100% attached?
The date of their application,
Yeah?
there was a provision that allowed them to do 100% attached relative to the identified rail station.
Right.
That's what's allowing it.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out why they're here as opposed to have gone administrative. Was there a particular advantage to them having chosen quasi-judicial?
Yes, sir.
Apologize for that.
Not a problem. While we're here, does anyone else need to be sworn in? Give me a second. There it is. Let me hold this for you. All right. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you shall give to the board in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Commissioner Munger, to answer your question, we changed the ordinance, town board changed the ordinance to require no more than 30% attached units in the town center zone and took away the ability to go 100% attached if you're within a quarter mile of a transit station. This is within a quarter mile of a transit station. So to answer your question, that's correct. They would not be able to have an administrative approval and do this development as is proposed. I will also say when the town board adopted that standard to eliminate the eliminate 100% attached within a quarter mile, they did so with a timeline. It didn't get adopted that night. It was a several-month process because people knew this was in process and there were already commitments made. So this was not unexpected. I would just say that.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
It absolutely does, and I do appreciate it, and I do hate catching staff off guard. I wish I could ask these questions prior, but quasi-judicial, I'm not allowed to.
I do apologize. That is what I was indicating, but perhaps I didn't say it that way.
Okay. And my other question related to this, so Jack, don't go too far away. Would the tree say percentage have changed if they went administrative?
No, that's based
That would
on
be the same.
That's based on the zoning.
Perfect. Okay. And the last one for you is, I see a dead end. Why didn't we connect? Just curious.
You talking about the alley?
This one, right there, black spot.
Yes, so connectivity is essentially something we focus on with town streets, not with alleys.
Okay.
Everything internal is a private alley,
Yeah.
and we just needed to have turnaround for fire and garbage and what have you. But we would not look to connect an alley to a state road.
Okay. And two questions, possibly one is for staff. The other one, well, actually, one's just kind of a comment to the applicant. When I went through some of your neighborhood meeting notes, one of the questions that was asked was, what is your percentage of tree save? The answer that was given was 30% of specimen trees. That is accurate. My issue is when you are talking to residents, tell them the true story. It's 17% of all trees. When you say specimen trees, typical residents don't understand what a specimen tree is and what a non-specimen tree is. So just be more forthright in what you're saying to them. Say it's 17%, although we are saving 7 out of the 21 specimen trees. That's a more factual statement. Although what you said was not untrue, it was just slightly misleading. So going forward, just think about that. And I literally just picked this up from the neighborhood meeting notes, so that's where I got the source of information. That's it. All right, and quick question on where are we on sidewalk consolidation to reduce the impervious coverage?
The applicant stated that they are willing to do that.
Good enough?
The fourth bullet down.
Perfect. Thank you. That's all I have.
Any other questions for staff or the applicant? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Yes.
Commissioner Munger.
All right. Motion to approve the Maxwell Avenue Townhome Subdivision Sketch Plan in considering the application by North State Development for Maxwell Avenue Townhomes. The town board finds the application is complete, the plan complies with all applicable requirements, and the plan is supported by the findings of fact outlined in parts 2 through 4 of the staff report, which are incorporated by reference herein based on the following conditions being met. 1, applicant will continue to study opportunities to save additional trees. 2, applicant will work with staff to resolve the small maturing trees proposed under the power lines. 3, a compliant urban open space type will be provided. 4, the numerous townhome sidewalk connections be consolidated to create more open space and reduce unnecessary impervious coverage. 5, the town transportation comments will be addressed. 6, water quality concept plan approved by staff. 7, all other plan comments will be addressed.
There is a motion. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Commissioner Partee. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And those opposed? 4-1, motion passes. Staff will draft, and I will sign a final written decision to reflect the vote and reasoning for this decision. Thank you to everyone attending the hearing, and we welcome you to stay for the other items on the agenda. And if you are planning to leave now, please do so quietly at this time. Thank you very much. All right. We will now move to item 10D, and this is the Huntersville Fire Department contract. Ms. Huffman, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you. It's good to see you again this evening. The town has a contract that's a 5-year term with Huntersville Fire Department. That 5-year contract expires in October of this year. Commissioners Partee and Boone, Anthony, Emily, and I have talked to Chief DeToley about changes that we might make to the existing contract. I would comment that the biggest, most significant change in my view about this contract is that previous versions suggested that if the fire department no longer provided fire services to the town, that the town would have the opportunity to buy back assets at fair market value. I'm confident I've left out significant details in what the current contract says. This version of the contract has been revised to say that if for whatever reason the fire department is no longer providing fire services, that the assets, tangible and intangible property, would be turned over to the town, including monetary assets. I'm happy to respond to questions that you have.
We'll open it up for questions. A motion? You have a question?
Yes. So maybe question or statement, and I'd like to thank the town attorney for taking my emails and answering them. I know that was a lot. Questions dealing with what happens if the fire department should say, we're parting ways? What happens to the equipment? You know, what if they sell it off sooner? She answered a lot of those questions for me, and I appreciate that. One of the things that I wanted to discuss, and my fellow board members were on those emails as well, but indemnification. It says the fire department will indemnify and hold harmless the town, its officers, agents, employees, and assigns from against all claims, losses, costs, damages, expenses, etc. And my point in a couple emails to the town attorney and copied on the board was to put defend there, you know, defend the town. And it was because if hypothetically, and don't get me wrong, we have a great fire department, but people can sue people or organizations at will. You know, they don't have to have a reason. So let's say someone's house burns down and their pet is lost in the fire, and they decide, well, the fire department didn't get there fast enough, and I'm suing you for $100 million. And I'm suing the town for $100 million, but they sue the town and not the fire department. How does that, where's the fire department at in that? You know, we're left holding the legal fees, we're left holding, you know, dealing with that, which I'm sure we'll outsource as we do most lawsuits. So my question, and the town attorney did say that we could put in there, defend, have the, you know, the fire department would defend, indemnify and hold harmless the town, meaning they would help step up for those legal fees if such an act should occur. Now, in the forever that they've been the fire department, I don't think anything has ever happened. But we live in a weird and interesting time where, I mean, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, would you have thought there was a pandemic on the rise? No. And then it popped up. Yeah, we think there's a baby formula shortage anytime soon, but then it happens. You know, so I think it's just, you know, it's a good contract. I appreciate Commissioner Partee, Commissioner Boone, and all involved sitting down and going through that. You know, but I'm looking at just my opinion as a board member up here, how we can make it just a little bit better. Thank you.
Ms. Loop, in regards to this potential word addition, what is your recommendation or thoughts around it?
So the previous fire services contract did not have an indemnification term. And so I suggested that we add one of our standard indemnification terms from our standard town contracts. And in those terms, we don't include the word defend because we include indemnify and hold harmless, but without the word defend, that would not mean that they would have to be in charge of the litigation on our behalf. They would rather still have to indemnify us and hold us harmless in terms of any cost claims, expenses, attorney fees, damages, et cetera. They just wouldn't be the ones actually defending, meaning litigating on our behalf, but rather we would retain the ability to litigate. We would just get reimbursed. And so that had been my suggestion, but again, it's the town board's prerogative as to whether or not they would like to amend this term and include the word defend.
So you're saying as it's currently constructed, we would retain the ability to defend ourselves, but then the cost of that would be sent over to the fire department, which would then reimburse.
Correct.
Any other questions?
Ms. Loop, correct me if I'm wrong, but there are 5 fire districts in the county that have contracts similar with what we have presently?
I don't know what the terms of the other
Districts.
fire service contracts are. I know that we have an interlocal with the county, and that's pretty standardized terminology.
I'm not-
And the interlocal indemnity term does not include the word defend.
That's where I was going. So we're uniform, so we're conformed with the other contracts or the other districts, our contract.
Commissioner Boone, do you have a comment or question?
I'm getting prepared to make a motion, and I don't have the word defend in my motion for point number 26. I'm going to go ahead and make my motion as I've written it out here, and if a commissioner would like to amend that motion to add that, that's the route I think I should go.
Okay.
With that said, I'd like to make a motion to approve the contract with the Huntersville Fire Department to provide fire service. The current fire department contract expires in October of 2022. This new contract would renew that 5-year expiring contract for an additional 5 years. This contract does provide that in the event of the Huntersville Fire Department no longer provide service to the town, that the existing assets would be turned over to the town at no additional cost.
There's a motion. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Commissioner Partee. Any additional discussion? We'll call the vote. All those in favor? And those opposed? Motion carries 4-1. We'll now move on to mayor and commissioner reports.
Nope.
No? Did I miss something?
Yep.
Oh, I apologize. And you were standing there ready to go. That's what happens when you have reading glasses on. You can't see far away. I missed it. It folded in on itself. I apologize to you, Mr. Jaycox. Head folded. I will turn it over to you. This is about a Highway 21 Greenway Tunnel discussion.
So here recently, we were brought opportunity for a pedestrian tunnel under Highway 21 from NCDOT. We do have Sean here if you have any questions from their side of things, but just to kind of give you a lay of the land. So where you see the green line is the current greenway that's under construction behind the post office to the right of your screen. And then the rest of that is under construction as Boulder Park Drive is connected to Carmen Center Drive. There will be a sidewalk that will connect you up, come towards the James Funeral Home, and then Arahova. Then there'll be an at-grade crossing currently that is part of the construction you see going on right now. Bring you by the AutoZone and come up. That will connect what the county is currently about to start building, is the greenway from Rosedale under 77 that will connect to the park and ride. So what you see in green is what's going to be coming out of the ground, if not already coming out of the ground, and will be, next couple of years. That will be the route people would take if they're coming from the west side of 77, coming to downtown. That green route is what they would be taking. And this is the crossing that people would use to get across Highway 21, what is being built now. So people would come across Arahova, So the crossing north of this intersection is where people would cross, come back down, and the sidewalk going Compass Street will take you towards the park and ride, and then that will get you under 77. So that's kind of the current crossing that's going in currently for this greenway connection from downtown to the tunnel under 77. And then back here a little bit closer. So what you see in orange is what would take you to a new tunnel. So you would come up, you wouldn't cross, you wouldn't have to cross at the intersection. You go up on the orange, come back out because of the grade. You have to swing out, come under the new tunnel under Statesville Road, and then coming back up behind Enterprise. The yellow line would be something that the county was originally trying to work with Enterprise to get the Greenway to come up further. So that yellow would be hoped to be a future connection that maybe the county could work with the property owners to bring that. So you would have a straight direct connect coming from 77, coming under 77, and then coming to the tunnel under Highway 21. So there'll be a direct connect where you don't have to come up onto the street level. So the proposal is about a 119-foot long tunnel, a 10-foot by 10-foot. It is estimated about $3.2 million, which that could change obviously over time. There's obviously CRTPO funds that we can go after, and even NCDOT staff said this project would probably rank pretty highly. The good news is the town will not have to fund this until it was completed, which is projected 2027, 2028. So there's 5 or 6 years from now, which will give you 2 or 3 or 4 opportunities to apply for CRTPO funds. Just a further outlook, so this is the 7-mile Greenway that we've been talking about, coming from North Old Statesville Road, going out towards the west, going under 77. So this whole 7-mile Greenway, there's only really one state road we actually are crossing that grade, and that's the one on Highway 21. So tonight is more of a discussion, get your feedback. I know this is the first time you all have seen this. Also, Sean's here with any questions you might have. Tracy and David, if I missed anything, I know they've been heavily involved with this, but I think this was a concern early on about having an at-grade crossing, a 5-lane road, especially if you have strollers and kids on bikes. How usable is that going to be to the user? So we thought this was a great opportunity to at least bring to you, because obviously if you don't do it now, then you won't have a tunnel in the future. Kind of like the tunnel under 77. So I'll take any questions.
We'll open it up for questions. Commissioner Phillips?
When did the discussions about this start?
I think they've been off and on for a while, but I think until the Highway 21 design for the north section started back up is when it picked back up.
Yeah, but when was that?
I guess, 2 months ago, 3 months ago?
Commissioner Partee?
Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Jaycox. Just a quick question. Has there been given any thought to a pedestrian bridge as opposed to a tunnel? And I speak from a different frame of reference, and Chief Boyle can identify with me, that tunnels are dark, dingy. There are people that can set up camp in tunnels, whereas a pedestrian bridge is nice and sunny. You can observe the traffic going off, pedestrian traffic going across. Has there been any thought about cost between tunnel and pedestrian bridge?
I think the elevation to get over the road is probably challenging. I'm not sure if you have anything to share about a bridge was considered or not.
I'm not aware of us looking at one. I mean, if you're coming,
You come in.
If you're coming from 77, the natural grade is going to put you wanting to go under 21. So from that standpoint, the tunnel makes more sense. On the other side, where, as he pointed out, we have to kind of wind to get down. So I guess you could wind to get back up, but you have to wind multiple times on the other side to get down to that grade where you're going to go under 77. Rough guess from a cost standpoint, I'd lean towards overpass might, in this case, be more expensive. Usually it's not. We have to look into it further, but you have to go down so far to get to that grade to go under 77. You have to be going up pretty high on that side. Well, what about
21. I mean, 21 would be more conducive to a pedestrian bridge as opposed to 77. I'm just putting the thought out there. That's all. It's all discussion. That's all discussion.
it's just that grade difference. I mean, when you get to the side of 21 between 21 and 77, you have to go down a long ways to get back to that grade to go under 77. So you're going to talking, a lot of step, or a long, very long ramp on that side to get up.
I've had the opportunity to be in the tunnel when they did it, and it is not closed and it's not dingy. I'm claustrophobic, so I was not claustrophobic in that massive space. Are you envisioning something similar to what I've seen over in Kannapolis? I know they've got a tunnel in their park. It's very open, and you can see right through it.
This one's a lot shorter, too.
That's why I'm asking.
This one's 119 feet. I think the Kannapolis one's like 200 feet. And
I think that's right. It's been a year since I've been out there.
It's a lot shorter.
Yeah, I think we originally proposed 10 by 10. I think the county was maybe looking for maybe like 11 or 12 by 10.
Okay.
Yeah, and there would be lighting.
One more question. Okay. My only other question is, how many accidents have we had here? And maybe Chief can speak to that. Because I know we've had several pedestrian accidents through here.
We have an average of one every other year. So we've had 4 in the last 7 years, I recall. We've had about 10 in the last 20 years. Most of those are people crossing over to the other businesses on the other side, misjudging traffic, the traffic misjudging the pedestrians. But to the point is the Greenway is definitely going to increase the number of people crossing, so safety is bad.
Any fatalities?
I don't have data back 20 years, but I know not in the last 7 years. They were injuries. Almost all of them are injuries. One was not an injury.
Thank you. Commissioner Kidwell?
Yeah, Chief, since I have you there, and Michael, they're running across a 2.5 lane, 3 lane, whatever it is right now, 2-lane road, 1-lane road. 2-lane road, there's no crosswalk, there's no crossing signs, it's just, I gotta shoot across there and it's playing Frogger, right?
Right, in
Okay.
different locations.
Yes. And I know this because I used to work out over here and then I'd run across the street and run up the street, so yeah, even in the middle of the night, it's Frogger-esque. Second question, and thank you, Chief. Michael, if you can go back a slide or two to right there, that's good. These are going to be signalized crosswalks right here, correct? So they're going to have the opportunity to come underneath the tunnel of 77, on a Greenway path, come up to a sidewalk, walk or ride across, and then catch the Greenway to connect to wherever they want to go, as long as it's built, right? All right. Third question, because why do we need a tunnel if they can do that? Third question is this in the budget? All right, so we just got this. We just passed this in July. All right, 3.25 million ask right now. It needs to be in the budget. It needs to be put in the CIP, put it in place, and work through the process. I mean, people go on a Greenway because they want to exercise or walk or ride their bikes. I don't think they're gonna have a problem walking on the sidewalk, walking to a crosswalk and hitting that. I've lived in multiple communities around the country where we have crosswalks connected to greenways. Down in Atlanta, they have them there. I mean, it's just built right in. They don't have the tunnels. They might have tunnels. I didn't go through the whole things, but there's not tunnels just so they don't have to walk on the street. And I do think asking the question about fatalities and injuries is great, but we're not comparing apples to oranges. You know, there's no signalized intersection down there right now. It is a free-for-all. All right? So we have to look at what safety measures we're putting in with 4-way signalized crosswalks versus nothing. And that's going to account for something as far as safety.
No, I agree with you on that regard. I do think that, and this is y'all's decision, but I'm thinking of families with strollers and kids and dogs and all of that commotion adding in. I don't know, I just think it's something you have to weigh.
I do weigh that. I mean, I am the guy with 2 kids, a
Right.
stroller, 2 dogs.
2 massive dogs.
2 massive dogs, yes. And, you know, when we do go out on the town, we do hit the button. We wait for the light. And if I can get my 8-year-old, myself, my wife, and the toddler or the baby across the street in ample time, and it's not like, hey, listen, I'm not Olympic style here. It's not like I'm sprinting across there like Jesse Owens. I mean, we're walking, we're slow, and we get across fine. I'm sure other families can do the same thing. it's the world we live in. We utilize the crosswalks.
Well, we don't have very many of them yet still in the town, too.
Well,
So, this would be a good thing.
that's Commissioner Munger's fault, and I just, don't.
Wow, okay. Commissioner Munger?
True fact on that. So if I'm understanding this correct, I apologize, I had to step out for a second. Is it option one or option two, or are we getting both? First question.
This is going in right now.
This is going in. So, and this is slightly up from where the tunnel would be. Is that accurate?
This is south of where the tunnel is.
Tunnel, okay, south. Okay, flip to the other slide. My apologies. The orange right there. Is that a future prospect?
That is part of all the tunnel that we're talking about. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha, okay. So we would already have a crosswalk in place regardless of what we do anything, so there would be zero cost or that's already accounted for? Huh. Okay, well, that basically hits all my questions then. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Seeing none, I know this was a discussion.
I guess the question would be, is there any interest of us bringing back something for more discussion?
Okay. Any interest in bringing it back for additional, Mr. Roberts?
Yeah, just like I say, it's for information, but because DOT is starting to move with this project, we just want to bring this to your attention. And if the board says, no, we got a crosswalk, we're good to go, then we're fine. We just, like Michael said, in the last 2 months, this has come up, they're cranking this project back up. And there's an opportunity here to, if you want to do that, now would be the time to do it. Obviously, it costs a lot of money. $3 million plus, and we'd want to go after CRTPO dollars if the board said move in that direction. But if the board says, no, we're good with the crosswalk and signal light, then we punt and keep getting it.
And the CRTPO funding could fund 80% of it, up to 80%.
I would say, try to get CRTPO funds to fund the rest of the Greenway that we already have on our plan, instead of going after a new project. Let's get what we've already planned out, built, and done. And definitely go after CRTPO funds, because I see Cornelius and our town manager, who is the former town manager, Cornelius, knows that they built a ton of greenways off of CRTPO funds.
Commissioner Boone?
Yes, thank you. Chief, I got one other question. What is safer for pedestrians with children? Would it be a functional four-way stop, signalized stop, or would it be the tunnel?
Well, that's easy, the tunnel, but anytime you can remove pedestrians from traffic, that's always safer.
Thank you.
So what you're saying, Chief, is just remove greenways from roads, and there would be no pedestrians?
Yeah, I mean, well, the question was a signalized intersection.
I'm joking.
Yeah, I get you. I do have a question. Is that a traffic signalized intersection? Yeah. Not just? That's traffic. Okay. Good.
All right. Do we want to direct Mr. Jaycox to bring it back? Do you want to have time to continue the conversation? Talk with Commissioner Kovacs, I know she's not here. And then ask Mr. Jaycox to come back the first meeting in September. What would you like to do? It's open-ended at this point.
I don't want to do this. I think that you guys have been talking about it for 2 or 3 months. We were in the budget process, and frankly, it's not fair to the other departments who, we have road projects and everything else in here where it would be nice if DOT partnered. We're sitting up here talking about safety. We have intersections in this town that could do very well with lights and road improvements. Like the side of town I'm on, I see the police at least once or twice a week because of car accidents at Brown Mill and 73. I don't, like, this already has a solution, but I do find it unfair to the other departments that we're swinging in over $3 million into a budget when this, if it was even being whispered about, should have been in the CIP. I think that's not a good precedent for the rest of the projects, because I'm looking through here and I'm like, well, this, like, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. We've sat up here and argued with each other over 20 and 30,000, and then we're just gonna be like, heck yeah, let's spend millions. So I just hope the board will be more cognizant of what we're doing, because we say one town, one team, but we can't just keep showing favoritism to certain departments.
Anyone else? Commissioner Munger?
Kind of touching on a similar base there. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing this added to the CIP as a long-term idea. One of the things, this town has no tunnels currently. And we're getting one at I-77, and we're gonna look at, put one right next to it. My thoughts are, let's see how the one at I-77 kind of works and see what kind of feel we get for that. So we have this as a potential down the road CIP idea. We see how the 77 tunnel works, and if it makes sense, move it up, kind of get it in there. If it doesn't make sense, nope, it's not gonna happen.
I think from a scheduling standpoint, that probably wouldn't work because the next couple of months, they're looking for some direction.
So right
Yeah.
now, to get the tunnel to work, we'll have to raise the grade of 21, like 3 to 4 feet. And so our opportunity to do that is when we widen 21 to 4-lane divided. If we don't do it, it's not really going to be, I mean, it's still an option, but it would be significantly more.
So we got a window.
How long is that window open?
Until
When do we have to make a decision?
September.
2 weeks?
Yeah, no, not me.
Side with Commissioner Munger and Commissioner Phillips. I think we just need to just move on and look at other options for that intersection right there.
So it sounds like Commissioner Boone?
It's like you got enough votes to can this.
So it sounds like the board would like to just leave the lighted crosswalks within that intersection and not move forward with the tunnel at this time. But thank you for being forward-thinking. And was that just, I mean, had it just risen up? I mean, Commissioner Phillips, it wasn't that they weren't, it just came up, so.
If we'd have known this way back when, we would have tried to put it in the CIP and give you all this, but this is something that was presented, and we said, well, let's at least educate the board and let them know about it. That's a big ask, obviously, with $3 million after the budget, but just want to make you aware. Didn't want you to come back later and say, why didn't you tell us? We
Right.
just found out.
Appreciate that. Thank you so very much. Now, we will go to Mayor and Commissioner reports. It looks like the Huntersville Concord Road right outside these doors is somewhat open to the parking lot of Town Hall. That is correct, Mr. Roberts?
There's Kevin. So a small portion, you want to give an update, Kevin, real quick?
Yes, Kevin, give me my update.
So
So it's accurate.
yeah, as of today, right out here is open temporarily from just to the parking lots, both sides. It's going to be open during the daylight hours, and then at night it's going to close back so that no traffic can get up in here and get stuck. The overall right out here is, I'm happy to report that we're on schedule. Paving should be happening next week, and everything should be open back up prior to the deadline of August 26th, as we initially hoped for.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so very
I'll
much.
say this rain every 6 or 8 hours is not helping us.
I'm sure, but you're staying on task.
Pray for some dry weather.
I do not have any report this evening, so I would like to pass it over to Commissioner Boone.
Very briefly, I have a NASCAR announcement to make that I hope you don't have to use, but this week, Martin Truex Foundation opened up the kids' emergency room at the Novant Hospital right here in Huntersville. And if you get a chance, I hope you don't get a chance, but if you do go there, and the mayor was there with me, that it's absolutely fantastic. And I would just like to thank Martin Truex and his wife and his foundation for investing money into our community. it's a jewel for what we need here in Huntersville. So children don't have to take an ambulance all the way down to downtown Charlotte. We've got the facilities right here in Huntersville. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, and thank you for that, because you're spot on. The wing that they've built's incredible, truly is. Commissioner Kidwell?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. CRTPO is meeting this Wednesday. There is nothing scheduled to vote on, it looks like, just for information only, including the TCC committee findings on the South Toll Road down in Charlotte. Beyond 77, which is a subcommittee of CRTPO, we met virtually today for about 2 hours, and we're just building out that plan of action to get within the communities, to talk about what we can try to get more information from the communities on the side roads and all the alternatives instead of 77. So we met today, very informative. It was virtually due to circumstances beyond our control, but next meeting is in September, and we plan on meeting in person. Also, Madam Mayor, the Raptor Center is celebrating on September 3rd, the International Vulture Awareness Day. They're going to help spread some vulture love with vulture-related crafts, a scavenger hunt, food truck, silent auction, supporting vulture conservation, and a chance to watch their educators work with vultures. I know we have some Raptor fans out there. This was laid on my desk by the Vice Chair of the Planning Board, Mr. Frank Gammon, and I just want to make sure that I read it for him. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Phillips?
Yes, I have an Ada Jenkins update. The program year ended June 30th. Some top points. In June, they saw the highest number of food pantry requests in a year, so they're working on expanding the pantry's hours. If anybody's in the place to donate, that would be a great thing to do. Thanks to a local Eagle Scout, a community refrigerator has been added that's open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. No referrals needed, no questions asked. This fall, an additional 20 students who are in grades 1st through 3rd, or who are 1 to 3 grade levels behind their peers, will receive individual and group reading and math instruction at the David B. Waymer Center in Huntersville through the LearnWorks program. Here are some stats about the last fiscal year. They responded to 1,776 emails, calls, or texts seeking information about the financial assistance or other family needs. 1,199 people obtained groceries through the Loaves and Fishes food pantry. 106 families received emergency financial assistance for rent and utilities. 173 people had their tax returns prepared for free, saving clients nearly $50,000 in tax preparation fees. 290 new clients entered the Economic Mobility Program, receiving tenancy education, connections with area housing, budget assistance, and employment and training resources. 97 people experiencing homelessness were connected with critical services and provided with emergency supplies. That includes people in Huntersville, for those who think that we don't have homeless people. 587 volunteers contributed 8,491 hours to help our tutors, our students make food deliveries, improve our building and campus, and so much more. So thank you to everyone who's contributed. Thank you to the town for being a good partner with Ada Jenkins, and let's keep supporting them. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Partee?
Thank you, Mayor. On this Saturday, August 13th, I was invited to attend and speak at the Pakistani Independence Day Gala at Highland Creek Elementary School. And it was heartwarming to see that they recognized Huntersville as a beautiful and welcoming, diverse community. So, and this Tuesday, August 16th, the Greenways, Trail, and Bikeways Committee will be meeting at 6:30 at the town center. The public is invited. And I also want to say that Parks and Recreation this August will be meeting at Abernathy Park, 6 p.m. Now news from our Huntersville Police Department, from Chief Hoyle. Newly assigned supervisors. We now have a Detective Lieutenant, Jennifer Sprague. We also have a new Detective Sergeant, Kidjaman Libby. Also, we have promoted a Detective Susan Cabacras, who will speak about fraud prevention to a women's group at the Northstone Country Club on August 18th at noon. And I want to congratulate Detective Torrey Hardy and his wife Ariel. They welcomed a new addition, son, by the name of Tristan Jerome, TJ, which is warm to my heart because my youngest son is also TJ. So congratulations to them on their new addition. And as always, I want to advocate for gun safety, especially in homes where guns are stored and children are present. Accidental and intentional discharge can cause serious injury and death. Let's please be gun safety. And finally, I want to recognize Cool Kids Clubhouse in honor of Dan Jensen, located here in Huntersville. And their mission is devoted to improving the quality of life for pediatric cancer patients. Please check out their website, and if you can, donate. That's my report, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Munger.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was recently able to attend a ribbon cutting ceremony for our wonderful new resource center for angels and sparrows over in the Rama Executive Park. It's a lovely facility. On August 4th, I attended the Huntersville Ordinance Advisory Board, and among the items discussed was a change related to the future of Birkdale Village. One of the items of note would be a potential request to allow for one or more much taller buildings with an overall potential future investment of over $100 million. So some very exciting things happening there. On August 9th, the Public Arts Commission met, and one of the items of note was that the new Kiwanis mural, I slaughtered that word for some reason, on the restroom building has been unveiled. I drove by there. It looks very nice. They did a great job there. Additionally, we received an update on the trailhead sculpture progress. It really does look like it will be something spectacular once it is in place. And lastly, it looks like we'll be moving forward with the concept to have peace poles installed at one or more of our local parks, which will represent each one of our Huntersville schools. And lastly, as always, if you have the opportunity to give, please consider supporting our local nonprofits. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
It's a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, we'll now close our